G'day, it's Rob here again. Well, regular viewers will have seen my old Schaublin 102 metal lathe many times. It's from the 1930s, so it's it's a pretty old thing. It's a toolmaker's lathe, very handy. And I bought it years ago as a wreck. Did it up, and it's super handy because I use it pretty much exclusively for collets. Although it does have a four-jaw chuck as well. Anyway, recently I had a viewer request asking if I could show the finer details of the drive system on this, because the viewer had bought a small lathe which was a similar sort of vintage, and he wanted to find out exactly how I'd set up the drive system on this. So, okay, we'll make this a short, quick video, and I'll help him out. So let's come in close and have a look at it. Now, I'll start off saying there's many ways to do this, and this is just the way I did it. So, you know, it works fine, and if people want to comment, well, go ahead, but this is just how I did it, and if you've done it differently and you think it's better, well, good luck to you. So the setup's very simple. You've got the intermediate pulley up the top here, and it's driven off of the motor, which is below it. And the motor and the intermediate pulley are all mounted on a pivoting arm. So that just pulls back, and you can just move your belts across with the motor off, of course, and put it anywhere you want. So it's a simple speed change, no big deal. You haven't got any overhead gantries and stuff like that. And yeah, it works fine. Track's beautiful. Now, the intermediate pulley system is on a support here, and it's each of the bushes, because it runs in plain bushes, but you could use ball races or whatever, it'd be quite okay. But the mounts are both slotted, and you can move each side independently in or out. And these are adjusters here for doing that. So when you've got it in the drive position, back loaded on the belt, you can just screw these bolts in or out with it running until you get it tracking perfectly, do up the lock nuts, and you're good to go. It's a simple setup. So the belt, which I think is a 1 metre poly belt, which has been on there for ever, I don't know, it's rated for 10,000 hours or some ridiculous amount. Anyway, it does the job, doesn't slip very easily, and the weight of the motor and everything is enough to give it the tension you want. You can see how much you've got there. That's good. Now, when I got this originally, the guy had a turnbuckle. He had a similar setup, not exactly the same. He didn't use the motor weight to put the load on the belt. He had a turnbuckle which went from the pivoting arm to the lathe. Well, it means you've got to, you know, undo it and redo it every time you want to change the speed. If you use the weight of the motor, it does exactly the same thing, and you can just move it from position to position within, you know, a few seconds. So I thought this was a better idea. Plus, he had the turnbuckle mounted onto the back of the lathe. There's one of these mount positions goes full length across the back for accessories, where he was using that mount position on the full width back to hang the arm on it and also put the turnbuckle on it, which I didn't. I thought they was putting a hell of a load on the lathe, plus it could twist the bed, you know. So this arm is pivoting and mounted on the base. Now, whether you got the lathe on a beam like me or just a flat bench top, it works exactly the same way. So here you can see the setup. The pivot point is on the same level as the base of the lathe. I've got the lathe mounted on a torsional beam, but I mean, it doesn't make any difference. That would normally be just the top of your bench, of your stand. So pivot point, same level as same base mounting point as the lathe. and the motor sits on an arm that comes out from the lever, and that's the bit we moved before. You can see how the pulley's mounted up there, and you can set your speed up by having larger or smaller pulleys on. It's up to you how fast you want it to go. The motor is a big old heavy 1.5 horsepower motor. It's a McColl. It's from the same vintage as well, slightly more modern than the lathe, but not much. And that's pretty heavy. And then I've also put a steel block on there as well for added weight. I just wanted to, a little bit more, so I've got a big hunk of steel hanging on there as well. And the whole thing works good. Now to adjust the motor, I'll come in on that and we'll look at how you can adjust the motor. Right, now there's several ways you could do this. You could mount the motor with the base on the arm and have it slotted so you can lift and raise it quite simply. Or you could have it slotted this way and move it in or out, and that would also do the same thing. But all I did was just mounted one end rigid on plates here. This end I made it adjustable so you can, the base can move up and down on the bolts or studs, whatever you got there. And then there's a tensioning bolt under the plate, and that basically comes up against the middle of the base. It's a heavy cast iron base, and you can raise or lower the motor with that bolt. Basically just loosen these off and it just pivots on that, a little bit of flex in the plate here. All your adjustments taking place here, and when you've got the belt how you want it, you just lock it all up and you're good to go. So it's basically, I mean, it'd be better if it had a hinge there, but it doesn't really need one because the base does flex slightly, being steel plate, and it's enough to do the job. So that's it. So here's looking at the other side of it. You can see the plate the motor's mounted on, which is welded onto the, basically an L-shaped motor and riser with a shelf coming off the top for the intermediate pulley with your adjusters, some bracing, and yeah, the whole thing's pretty rigid. All you need is a stick welder and away you go. I suppose you could bolt something up if you wanted to, but welding is, you know, the way to go. You can do a pretty neat job. And we've got the pull handle and one at the back as well, and it all acts as supports. Nothing could be simpler. The genuine article motor mounts for a lot of these, and particularly Schaublin, they used an eccentric cam so that they moved the intermediate pulley with an eccentric, and that way it tensioned against the motor, and I think it also tensioned against the spindle, I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, so as I said, there's a few ways to do this, but this is dirt simple and works good. You can see how I've got an arm coming out from the torsional beam to take the motor. Gives you plenty of flexibility, and also, of course, you can't beat a torsional beam for strength and also for flatness. It's the way to go. So there you go. I hope that answers your question, and going on what I've shown you shouldn't have any trouble at all knocking up something similar. Okay, that's it for me. See you next time. Cheers.